Hello, I'm Anthony. I'm in the process of writing this song at the moment. It's called Sunset, and it's in 13/16. So I want to use this as an opportunity to talk about complex time signatures, because once you get past 5, I find it starts becoming really difficult to actually count. And the best way to do it is to use subdivisions. Now, I first discovered this concept. I remember exactly where I was and when it was. It was 1992. The album was You Can't Do That on Stage Anymore, Volume 6 by Frank Zappa. And there's a live track on that album. Well, the whole thing is a live album. But there's a track called 13. Jean-Luc Ponty plays guest violin on the piece. Check out Jean-Luc Ponty. He's done a couple of classic prog albums in the 70s. Anyway, in this introduction to the piece, Frank says, right, this song's in 13, subdivided 5, 8, 4, 4. This is how you count it. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And this bomb went off in my head. It's just like, excuse me. I press rewind on the track, listen to it again. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you basically start getting your fingers out. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 5, 5 plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 played half the speed. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 plus 5 is 13. Supernova. So this was the first time I'd ever considered subdivisions in a piece of music. And for 30 years, it's been kind of sat there. It's an absolutely wonderful piece of music. I love it. I've never actually written the piece in 13/16 myself. So when I came to do it, I thought, well, I don't want to use exactly that subdivision. I'll come up with my own. And so I used the click track. I built myself a click track tempo in 13. And as you can see at the bottom of the screen, it basically goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So I'm using 3 kind of pseudo triplets, which make up 9 beats, and then 2 half speed beats at the end. And this is what we get. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Now that bass line, as simple as it is, it's just octave bounces. It took me about 2 days to really start feeling the groove. I'd pick this thing up, jam along to this kind of crazy click track just going ridiculous in the background. If I turn the click track on and mute the bass, it's pretty hard to actually follow. But eventually I did start grooving along to it. And the structure for this song actually came entirely from the bass. So this is basically one of the main points I want to bring out of this thing. If you're writing a piece of music in complex time signatures, use the bass. Firstly, you're not playing as many notes as the more complicated instruments. You're going to find that you're picking out the structural moments, those 5 anchor points, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. I don't know, I find it easier to groove out with the bass than any other instrument. So I actually laid down multiple different bass lines over the course of several days, all in different variations of 13s. We've got this fella over here. It's really easy to hear what's going on here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And every now and again, when I was jamming along to this thing, I found myself coming out with something that didn't fit in the time signature. I thought, what am I feeling there? What am I playing? So I stopped the rhythm track, just played the notes naturally and thought, hang on a minute, that's in 4/4, what's going on? So I ended up sticking these odd little bits of 4/4 at the end of the groove and accidentally created something really cool. So we just have 1 bar moments of 4/4 that break up the pattern. Let's have a listen to a 2 bar example of that kind of thing. So here we are in 13s and 4s. Back to 13s. Completely organically over the course of 3 or 4 days, with no harmonic information underneath, I just grooved out a rhythm to this track. Everything that I was playing was in 13, and I discovered after a few days, as long as I stayed away from regular pieces of music, I started thinking in these terms. I would go to bed humming 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So it really gets under your skin. Now, this stuff doesn't come naturally to me, but eventually when it soaks in, you can really start funking out on it. So having laid the bass line down, putting music over the top of it was relatively straightforward at that point. So the next step in the process was to set out a really simple harmonic line. Now, this guitar, although I'll play it, it's not actually part of the song anymore, but this was the melodic construct that I then developed my chord ideas from. See the chord track. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. That little chromatic note there, really simple. Played it on the bass line, again, just completely organic. Tiny little chromatic note, thinking that's staying in, and all of the other instruments are going to follow it as well. So anything else that's playing at that moment, when I'm playing this D, D sharp, E, they all do the same thing, and it sounds really cool. So now I had my musical information, build the chord track from these arpeggios that I'm playing kind of intuitively on the guitar. So at this point, everything is still just closing your eyes and, figuring out what notes you want. Then I go back and figure out what notes I'm actually playing. So now I've got a chord track. Turn my simple guitar arpeggio thing off. I'm not interested in hearing that as part of the song. But let's drag the chord track down and create some keyboard lines out of it. Some wonderful timing offsets between these things. That's because Omnisphere has no idea that I'm in 13. So as far as Omnisphere is concerned, this is just a preset completely out of the box. I haven't touched it at all. I was just basically going through the various pad sounds in Omnisphere. Came across this one. When I dragged these chords out of the chord track and dropped them into my project, these were the notes that Omnisphere played, and I haven't touched it. I'm happy to take credit for it because it was my ears that told me it was good. I often feel that almost all the music I write is more or less completely by accident. I always feel a little bit kind of sheepish about taking credit for it because I'm just throwing stuff down onto Cubase and seeing what sounds good. Last thing I want to talk about today is pads. So chord pads sound great over the top of those plinky little arpeggio things. So what we were just listening from this Moonbase preset, I've used literally exactly the same notes, but now it's going to play over this Jupiter pad, and those two things together are going to sound like this. Just notice that those arpeggios aren't actually tracking the chromatic note. I need to fix that. But, we've got the beginnings of a song here. This is a really good foundation. I'm pleased with it at the moment. At the moment, it's just a bundle of individual ideas that are going together. As you can see, I have made 4 minutes worth of project here. And I'm starting to get some idea of where vocals might sit. Do I want an instrumental outro? Those ideas are starting to coalesce. But at the moment, it's just in that really lovely flux state where everything's up for grabs, and trying as much as possible to have that kind of overview, looking down on it, thinking, well, how does it sound? I'm coming up with various ideas, and it's really easy to get locked in and saying, that's the idea, I'm going to play with it. But what does it actually sound like? How good is the idea? And that's always the case at the beginning of writing any new song. For the first few weeks, you throw as many ideas into the pot as you possibly can, and then just let them simmer for a while, come back and see which ones are the good ones. Hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please hit like. I'll see you next time. Thanks very much.